thanks, of course, for your time today. I know
Oh
that
yeah.
you a lot of things going on in your life, and this whole COVID-19. That's you know certainly puts a pause on everything that you're dealing with. But how are you holding up? Are you and your loved ones okay?
Yeah, man. I'm okay right now. Obviously, this is a hard time for everyone, and the world is hurting for sure. We have to get creative, and we have to, obviously, all stay at home. Home workouts. You know, trying to save money, trying to, keep our loved ones safe. My dad's, in his 60s and whatnot. It's like, you worry about your loved ones like that, but he's okay right now. So it's tough, but I think we're all kind of in the same boat, Netflix and chilling with ourselves and trying to do the best we can with what we have. And man, I just hope we all come together and we're stronger on the back end of this.
Right. And I think you just hit the nail on the head. I've got kids at home, and we're sitting here just waiting to find out what happens next. My kids probably won't be going back to school this year. So,
Yeah. My dad's a professor, and it's one of those weird things where like he has seniors that are gonna just graduate online. You know what I mean? Like they're never
yeah,
gonna go back to. Obviously, it's not like we feel bad for millionaire athletes, but like it was weird to watch Vince Carter's career end like impromptu in the middle of the season, and not because of like an injury. Him just to be like, oh, like we're canceling the season. I'm done right now. Okay, like it's a weird time for sure.
right. And I mean, I don't know if you're a fan of baseball, but like there might not be a season at all, and they
Yeah.
just keep pushing everything back. Well, hey, maybe in June, hey, maybe in July, but it's real crazy. There's nothing that's ever been like this before.
Yeah, yeah. I really never thought that I would live to be a part of a world event that was crazier than like 9/11, and not to diminish everything that happened there because that was a terrible tragedy, but like the longer lasting impact of how, like, obviously 9/11 also impacted how we travel and whatnot, but this has gone on for so long now already, and it doesn't seem like it's going to be going away anytime soon. And it could be like we don't know if this is going to be a yearly occurrence or if we're going to get a vaccine next year or what the deal is. But it's just one of those things that the whole world has been affected, and now for like a month or whatever, basically, of like really serious. Like China's been going through it since the beginning of the year, and Italy's been going through it for a couple of months. It's like I don't know. Everyone is going through this right now. It's pretty freaking wild.
Yeah, and I mean, what a time to be alive, right? Wrestling up until this point seemed like it had never been hotter. You've got WWE, of course, is the WWE, bigger than anything in the world, and then you've got New Japan is such a big deal. You've got AEW that's kicking off, and then there's lots of other smaller feds, places you've worked for, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, AML. There's all these different wrestling promotions, and it seemed like we were kind of at the pinnacle of wrestling in this country, and then everything comes grinding to a halt. How has that been for you to try to?
It reminds me in a weird way of I wasn't wrestling at the time, but like of like a 2008 financial crisis where like almost like a bubble pops where like everything was going a little bit too well, and then things exploded, and before you know it, we're in a financial crisis. We're in a health crisis. People can't pay their bills. They're in tough situations. It's similar, except for there's obviously the health implications, and this seeming like might be a longer term thing. Hopefully, financially, it's not quite as much of a long term thing, and people are able to, on the back end of it, be okay and provide for themselves still, and get back to whatever jobs that they had and whatnot.
And yourself, I mean, I know you're impacted pretty severely because you're not getting bookings right now. So what?
It's tough not doing bookings. It's tough not performing, obviously, and all that. I'm very lucky to be in my situation with the NWA, where at least they're still taking care of me. So there are people out there that are definitely, feeling it worse than me. And my heart goes out to people like that. Like I thought about when everything started going down and everything started getting locked down. I thought about if I was still just doing the indie grind where I was doing, 3-4 shows on a weekend and, like Ubering during the week and trying to make it work. Like all of a sudden I'm out of every job. And what do I do? All I can do is stay at home and not make money and spend money, like, and just be and hopefully stay healthy would be a really tough, much tougher situation that I'm in right now. And it's like, I'm certainly not in an ideal situation, but at the same time, I'm very lucky to have a company like the NWA helping me out. And I'm really grateful to them in a time like this that they are, they're there to take care of me.
And I definitely want to talk more about the NWA. Of course, my website, alliance-wrestling.com, our primary source of where our content comes directly from the NWA. But I want to talk about Royce, the wrestler. I mean, you didn't just fall on the NWA's doorsteps. You've been putting in work for several years. I mean, just looking up your match statistics, DDT in Japan, UCW 0 in Utah, Rocky Mountain Pro, of course, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. Let's talk about the beginnings. Let's talk about Royce Isaacs prior to his time in pro wrestling. What motivated you to get into the world of wrestling?
Well, I mean, I always enjoyed it as a kid. It's something that I watched with my dad, and so it was like a bonding thing that we got into together. I remember when I was younger, me and my neighbor, I was more of a WWF guy. He was more of a WCW guy. But like I watched both products. I thought both were cool. When we'd see each other, we'd do the little too sweet, hello and all that stuff. And, I remember we would do backstage or backyard trampoline wrestling. Like we never made like an actual ring or whatever, but we did the trampoline stuff. I remember one time, and I gave him like a body slam or something, and there's like the Attitude Era was like popping, so I did like the Val Venus taunt over him or whatever, hip swivel, and like my dad gave me a really hard time because he could see the backyard from his house or whatever, our house rather. And I was so embarrassed at the time. Like, it was good times though, man. I was really into wrestling, and then I always, somewhere in the back of my mind, thought it might be something that I would be good at. But I didn't end up giving it a try. I didn't start training until I was 25. And in the meantime, I tried a bunch. I was always into sports. I was always into competing. When I was younger, I did soccer. I did hockey. And then as I got older, through high school and college, I picked up both amateur wrestling and football. And I did that in high school and in college. And I think that all that stuff obviously helped me a lot with footwork and coordination and core strength and giving me something. Like I was always lifting, so that helped me out quite a bit as well. But a lot of it too is just like the mental strength of like wrestling's a really tough sport on you mentally, both in the ring and out of the ring. But being able to push myself mentally, being able to, wrestling itself as an individual sport, you kind of have to mesh with other personalities. And I think that being in that team environment for so long has helped me out a lot. So I've always kind of had that itch, and I've always liked wrestling. Whether I knew it or not, a lot of the things I was doing was preparing me for that rest.
Now, I became familiar with your work with Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. And of course, I'm a SoCal guy too. So, I saw your maturation when you came out here. I remember your early matches in Hollywood, and then you started getting booked everywhere like Fist and bar wrestling. And of course, making your way through SoCal. But how did you get from point A to point B? How did you go from Colorado to SoCal?
So I started out training in Colorado. I'm very grateful for my time there, and I had some amazing experiences. I was able to do my tours of Japan while I was still living in Colorado. I had done some stuff, but I just felt like there wasn't enough. Like in terms of I was growing, but not at a rate that was fast enough, both in my work and in my whatever you want to call it, my profile wasn't building fast enough, and I didn't think I was going to get the opportunities that I wanted while living in Denver. There was only so far I could really go with the Japanese tours and whatnot, which were some of the coolest experiences I've ever had. But it was like I could live on the West Coast and get out there more easily and still have access to a lot more stuff. Like you really have to be around a hub if you're wrestling. And obviously, like, I think there's a little bit of an East Coast bias overall to indie wrestling, but there's still, like, I think what one of the turning points in my head was I went to a show in Northern California, where I would just go to Northern California and do like 3-4 shows in a weekend and try to make my money back, because Denver to NorCal was pretty cheap at the time. I saw, I was at some random show, and like Timothy Thatcher and Jeff Cobb were there, and I was like, they're just hanging out, like they weren't wrestling, but it was like, oh, this would never happen if I was in Denver. We wouldn't just be like randomly like, oh, here's two guys that are like really high work rate, top indie guys. They wouldn't just be chilling there. I was like, that's an eye opener that if I was in like on one of the coasts, at least I could kind of, at least make more connections and be around better workers and whatnot. And I had kind of thought about moving to the East Coast. It didn't work out for whatever reason, and I was friendly with because I've been doing FSW Future Stars of Wrestling in Las Vegas already. I was friendly with Eli Drake, and he had a room opening up, so I ended up moving to Hollywood and living with him for about 2 years. And in that time, I was able to do to work obviously in the people of SoCal, which I think in terms of work rate, SoCal has some of the best workers anywhere going. And I think like the proof is in the pudding. There's a reason why PWG is from SoCal. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
It's just that environment of like everyone can go around here. And like I'll find myself, I'll be like, oh, like so and so isn't that good, and then I'll be like, oh, you know what? Like if they were in another spot, like they'd be one of the better workers there. You know what I mean? Like SoCal has people that can freaking go. And I've always believed, like iron sharpens iron was like an old saying in amateur wrestling. You want to be around the best workers. And I think that being able to be around really good workers and work good workers every weekend. And I give a lot of credit to, I did the Luchas class at Santino's quite a bit when I first came out here. And I think Los Luchas are one of the most underrated tag teams in professional wrestling, like that haven't really gotten their due for how good they are. And they helped me quite a bit with just like, there were certain things that I wasn't super comfortable with or super capable at, that they just gave me that confidence to try and gave me the technique that I needed to be able to do it. And I think that my work rate itself helped, got better. I felt like I was solid before I moved to California, but I think it got much better once I moved here and I was around that environment of, killers. And I also have to give a really big shout out to Jungle Boy, because me and him trained together quite a bit. And we would always challenge each other to kind of step it up and to do more and to try crazier stuff. And I couldn't be prouder of what he's accomplished so far with AEW and all the moves he's been making.
So I don't know if you're aware of this, but I just wanted to bring it up because you brought up Los Luchas. Did you know that they were NWA Tag Team Champions?
I did know that. It's not something that I like actively thought about when I brought them up, but I did know that but back in the day they were NWA Tag Champs, and I think it would be a really interesting team if I don't know if there'd be mutual interest from them and the NWA, but it would be cool to see them in the current NWA environment, because I think they'd bring something kind of different to the table. But I can't say enough good things about those guys. They're really inspirational, and they're really amazing. And I'm glad that they've been able to kind of get a little bit of like a second wind on the indies and do some of the bar shows, because they're obviously you could tell I can't say enough good things about their work and their coaching.
Yeah, it's I like connecting the NWA from the past to the present, and seeing Los Luchas or even Carl Anderson and Joey Ryan back in the day with the NWA tag titles, and then again seeing another. I'm going to call you a SoCal guy, even though I know you're from Colorado, but seeing another SoCal guy with that belt, as a lifelong NWA fan, that was pretty badass to me. So I want to talk more about what got you to the NWA, but I do want to talk about your time in Japan. I also want to talk about Paragon Pro Wrestling. I want to talk about Jeff and how was working for that guy and how was working for Paragon Pro Wrestling.
My thing with Paragon that I really took away from it was like it was a studio environment, so I got to learn how to do a little bit of studio wrestling. Obviously, now I do it at a much higher level, and
Sure.
it's like a different beast when it's like the NWA or Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. But it was a really good introduction to that style. I met some of my best friends in wrestling still today through Paragon. My first time I ever worked Scorpio Sky was there. I met Christian Cole, who I'm still good buddies with today. Blake Chadwick, Anthony Green, Chris Levin. Like, all these guys were really talented people. Like, I think you can't say enough about some of the talent that was there. That was really like has helped me out, but also people that like I still talk to them today. These are still people that I chat with. I think there's a lot of really good talent, even like, backstage. Like, D'Lo was helping out with quite a bit of stuff. Matt Stryker was helping out with stuff. Like, to get to be agented, or Sin Bodhi, for example, as well. Like, to be agented by people like that and to have them giving you feedback on your matches when you're still fairly green and new. Like, I was still really young into my career at the time, and like, to have experienced leaders like that kind of, giving me, this is an advanced way of this is what you should be doing. Or Gangrel was there, and he still is actively working, but he was not technically an agent, I don't believe, but like, he was still helping everyone out in an agent kind of way, where he would give you feedback and give you advice. And I got to work a program with Gangrel, and like, those kind of valuable experiences were things that helped kind of shape my later career and get me the places that I've been now. So it's been really cool.
And then, of course, I have to ask about the Dramatic Dream Team working in Japan, DDT. I mean, there's so much cool stuff with DDT. Of course, that's where Joey Ryan got famous for the dick flip. They have a tendency to bring the Kaijins from the United States and Canada up there. Guys who, all due respect, lesser known, but guys who can work. And guys like you and D-Man Parker who were out there, Joey who was out there. Tell me about your experience.
Wrestle One, actually.
Say that again.
D-Man went for Wrestle One, I want to say.
Oh, I thought he was in DDT as well. Maybe different times. But anyways, so talking about DDT, first of all, how did you adapt to life in Japan? Because you didn't go over there just for a show. You were there for some time. How was it being there and adapting to that environment?
I mean, honestly, I always, from a very young age, was really into Japanese culture, whether it be, video games and movies. Like, some of my favorite movies are Akira Kurosawa, like some of the samurai flicks and whatnot. I was always really into the food and the culture. So like, I took to like actually being over there like a fish to water. I really like, I loved my time in Japan. Hopefully I get to go back one day for sure. I think DDT is very underrated in terms of like, obviously they took a chance on me because I was really not well known at all at the time. But like, Kenny Omega came out of DDT.
Right.
You have people like El Generico, who's now Sami Zayn, did tours over there. I want to say that was one of the first places that Colt worked for in Japan, or at least I know that he did some tours with DDT. I guess I shouldn't. He's probably been to Japan a million times, but Colt did tours for them as well. Ibushi came up from DDT. Like, some of the top guys that they have there now, like Konosuke Takeshita or Tetsuya Endo, like, those are guys that are going to be top staples of Japanese pro wrestling, no matter what company they work for. If they stay with DDT or if they end up, with New Japan or somewhere else, like, these are guys that are top workers there. So I think that DDT is a really interesting mixture of, like, there's obviously some comedy quite a bit, which is what they're kind of known for, but their actual workers are top class. And I learned a ton being over there. And Speedball Mike Bailey was over there on all my tours, and he's a great friend of mine, and I can't say enough about his work. He's blown it up all over the world, but still there for DDT right now. And I want to say he just did a tour with WXW in Germany, where I heard he had a match with Bandito that is like match of the year, which probably like will be match of the year if we don't get back to wrestling this year. But like, their talent levels, the talent levels over there at DDT, I think honestly get don't get enough credit because people just think of, like some of the crazy or the funny spots that they've done, which are also really great and really innovative too. Like, I don't want to take away from that because they're also doing something that's different than what a lot of other people are doing, which is really cool.
Yeah, that's cool. How did you get hooked up with that? Like, who did you go through? Like, who did they find you, or did you find somebody else?
Basically, I was always really into Japanese culture, like I had said, and so I always wanted to wrestle in Japan was a big goal of mine, and not just like as like a bucket list. Like, obviously, wrestling in Japan is a big like resume kind of thing that a lot of people want to do, but for me, it was also like this childhood thing that I was always into. So one day I was just like, hey, I don't really think this is going to work, but I basically just cold called every company that I'd like heard of or that I really knew about that was in Japan. I just sent I had a resume, I had matches, and I just sent it out, and I was just hoping and praying that they would respond. I stayed on it, and I stayed on it, and I kept messaging these people. And DDT was the only one that was very responsive. And at first they were kind of like, no, we don't really have anything. And then they had this thing called the DNA Grand Prix, and someone got injured a little ways before, and they were looking for, I guess, a gaijin for a replacement, and they decided to take a flyer on me. And so my first tour was the DNA Grand Prix, which was also really cool because basically I was there for a little over a week, and I was just wrestling every day in like a round robin block style format or whatever. So I got to work a variety of people, and in singles matches, I got to do a match with Kazusada Higuchi, who I think is really, really good. And he's finally, last year at Mania, he got to get exposed to some new fans, and they were like, oh, wow, this guy is quite impressive. And he did like some of the Evolve shows and stuff too. He's really, really good. But I got to do a main event match with him at Shinjuku Face, which was really freaking cool and an amazing experience for me. And then after that, getting to come back and do some of the tours with DDT for, I would be there for a couple months or a month or whatever, and really get to, like they have a tour bus, and we get to go all over and experience different kinds of foods and cultures, and the different areas of Japan was like, I mean, like I said, it was a dream come true. And I can't say enough about their crew over there. In addition to being really, really good at wrestling and really, really good at comedy and moments and whatnot, they're also just like a top-notch, top-class group of people. Like, they were all really cool and accepting of me, and like I didn't feel like I was getting hazed, or like everyone was like, all right, you're here, that means that we trust you, that you can, like, you'll earn your spot, that you're one of us. So it was just like the pressure was off in terms of that. Like, now it was almost more pressure for myself to be like, I can't let these people down because they're putting their trust and their faith in me. You know what I mean?
Right. Totally get that. So I know we're kind of running out of time, but let's talk about Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, because you just more or less wrapped up about 2.5 years at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. And I'm not trying to blow smoke up your butt, but you literally were the guy. I mean, you came in, they partnered you with Jamie Iovine. Things went very well. The pairing worked well. You were the United Wrestling Network TV champion, briefly held both titles, the Hollywood Heritage title, all the while starting to make these appearances for the NWA. And they built a stable around you in the relationship with Jamie. I mean, let's talk about Hollywood and how much was it fun? Did you have a good time? Was it hard? Tell me about that.
I loved working with Hollywood. Hollywood was a lot of fun. It was a continuation of like learning that studio wrestling style, and obviously getting to work with Jamie, who is someone that, I still have a lot of respect for, and he's one of my good friends. He's a really good dude. It was really cool. I immediately, I feel like Hollywood was just like a place I felt like at home. Yuma was like the booker there for quite a bit of time, and to get to work with a guy like that I had watched him and BHK when they were on PWG. So it was like, oh man, like this is a really, it was one of those, like, life is circular, like, wow, like now I'm working with this guy, and he's someone that I have a lot of respect for, and I still talk to on a daily basis. And getting to work, programs with guys like, I think Andy Brown's really, really underrated, and he's one of those guys that I wish would, he should get out there and he should blow up more. But getting to do that big program with him that culminated in a ladder match was awesome. Getting to work Bateman and basically we feuded for the whole last year darn near, and he's an amazing talent, and he's finally getting his just due at Ring of Honor, which is really cool. I got to work some really awesome matches. Like I got to work Joey Ryan one-on-one. And he's a really underrated guy in terms of his actual technical wrestling is amazing. Like people forget that he used to be the technical wizard, Joey Ryan. They just think of dick flip or whatever. And then obviously one of my biggest matches that at the time it was already a really big, like obviously this is a big deal match, but I didn't realize how much of an impact it would have on me was getting to wrestle Nick Aldis one-on-one and go tooth and nail with him for 15 minutes was something that, there was obviously I was able to show that I could hold my own and that I had my, what my value was. And me and Nick struck up a friendship from that. And, pretty soon after that, I started working with the NWA itself. And I don't think any of that would have happened without me being at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood first and getting used to that studio style and also getting exposed to people like Nick Aldis and, Dave Lagana and Billy Corgan and whatnot. So I can't say enough good things about my time at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood because it made me who I am today.
And then the Crockett Cup. Now, I was one of the guys that was actually there, and I popped because I saw you, somebody who I've been watching for weeks. I take your pictures when I'm at the shows. I watch you online, and to see you in that environment, and I wasn't expecting you. I don't think any of the other fans were either. And all of a sudden you show up, and I'm like, holy shit, that's Royce Isaacs. Yeah. And then the pairing seems so random with you and Tom. It just seemed out of nowhere. And you guys worked, as far as I know, that's the first match you guys ever worked together. And you guys looked very crisp, very clean, very professional. How was it getting that opportunity at the Crockett Cup to be the wild card tag team? And of course, the pairing with Latimer ever since. You guys have been, money, if you don't mind me saying. It's been fun to watch you guys, the maturation from the Crockett Cup to winning the tag titles to, being in the NWA, wrestling the Rock and Roll Express, for crying out loud. I mean, tell me about that.
Yeah, man. I think it's one of those things that, like, me and Tom immediately there was that chemistry there that, it was definitely like a random pairing that, like, at first it was like, all right, how are we going to find where we fit together and whatnot? But pretty soon, like, everything started snapping and it was like, all right, we have, like, attitude-wise, even though, like, it's like, I'm the kind of guy that listens to rap. He's the kind of guy that listens to death metal, like he's wearing a kilt, I'm wearing tassels. We started to find more and more similarities in the areas that are important, like in terms of, like, okay, yeah, like, our style's a little bit different, but our attitude is the same and the kind of things that we want are the same. And so it's like when you have something like that, like the actual principles, the important stuff is, we're right there together. We both are guys that work hard and want the best for ourselves and have the same kind of attitudes as far as, like, how to get stuff accomplished and where we want to go with the NWA, especially. It was like just things gelled a lot quicker than I could have ever hoped. And I'm just excited to once things get back to normal to get to even, bigger heights with him and to kind of grow that relationship even more. Cause I feel like it's like every time there was another set of tapings, we kept hitting another gear and another gear and another gear. So once things are really back to the way we we were and whatnot, we're only going to keep hitting more, a next gear. And it's like our tag team chemistry from the start, it felt like a natural love fit. But man, I feel like, this is with a year of us being together and us tagging, basically. It'll be a year next month. And, there's been big gaps of time where we haven't even gotten to tag as much. So once we are able to be consistent and tag quite a bit, I feel like, it's like there's no ceiling except for where we choose to have it,
Yeah. Tell me, because I have a great photo that I want to use anyways, but tell me how it was just punching Robert Gibson right in the solar plex, just giving it to him. one of the best pictures I've ever taken at a wrestling show, and you're just giving it to Robert Gibson. Tell me what it was like working with the Rock and Roll Express.
Man, I think for me it's great because we are still, like getting, like we're a year into tagging together, whereas these guys have been tagging together for 30 years each. You know what I mean? Like it's like they've had this crazy long career together, consistently killing it. So it's almost like we got to get this like crash course, and this is how to be, this is how to get that tag chemistry up and work together. Um, I really enjoyed our matches with them. I think that we've had some really successful matches with the Rock and Roll Express where, everyone's come out of it as a greater team than when they went into it, as far as how they looked, going into it and whatnot. And I think it's been great for us and great for them. So I'm enjoying it. I'm glad they're getting to get this run at this point in their career, and they've been able to help us so much with our tag team work together that it's been crazy. And like I said, me and my dad watched Rock and Roll Express when I was a kid, so it's also this weird like circular thing where like, and my dad lives in South Carolina, so he gets to go to all the NWA shows. So to get him watching me wrestling a team that he grew up watching, and that I grew up watching, that we watched together, is insane.
That's really cool, man. That's really cool. Well, I know we were going to try to keep this to about 30 minutes, and we just surpassed that. So I want to thank you for your time today, Royce. And I appreciate you coming on. I know a lot of the Alliance Wrestling fans are really looking forward to hearing this interview. And we wish you nothing but the best coming up. I know that everything's on pause, but how can guys follow you? Instagram, Twitter? Are you on TikTok yet? What are you doing?
I am not on TikTok yet because I'm trying not to give my information to the Chinese government. I don't know. I'm just kidding. That's what I heard. At Royce Isaacs on Instagram, at Royce Isaacs on Twitter. If you're interested in supporting and buying some merch, I have pics of all my stuff on there. Actually, I'm wearing my Wildcard shirt right now. If you like that and you're good to go, make sure obviously that your own bills are paid first. But if anyone out there wants to get some merch, pictures, shirts, whatever, I can mail that out to you. Just DM me, holler at your boy, and obviously keep watching all the NWA keeps trying to put out more and more content that we can use for the show. In lieu of having power. So keep watching that. And if you were able to kind of watch this and get your mind off things for a little bit and get some enjoyment out of it, I just really appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, hey, I want to say thanks again, and we'll see you. We'll see you soon.
Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate it, brother.
Yeah. Have a good one. Hey guys. So, how about that, huh? An impromptu interview with Mr. Royce Isaacs. Actually, we've been planning that for about a week or so, but very excited that he came on today. Please make sure you support your NWA wrestling talents, your friends, if you will. Every Tuesday night on YouTube at about 6:05 Eastern, the NWA post content. Please digest that content. Please watch. I mean, you're really helping out these guys. And like Roy said, the NWA is taking care of their talent. So as fans of the brand, I really would encourage you guys to check that out. That's going to do it for us this episode. And, we're talking about doing some more Talk NWA episodes coming up here in the near future. And of course, we're still reaching out to you, Miss Thunder Rosa. We would like to do a sit-down interview with you as well. But, of course, you could follow everything that we're doing at Alliance-Wrestling.com, your number one source for news and information for the National Wrestling Alliance. You could also follow us on Twitter. You could follow us on Tumblr. You could follow us at Twitch TV. You can follow us at YouTube, which you're watching right now, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Even though Mr. Isaacs isn't on it, we are. So make sure you check us out. And again, we wouldn't do this if it wasn't for you guys watching. So again, we appreciate you checking us out every week. Of course, Tuesdays at 5:05 Eastern, 2:05 Pacific, we do the pre-party. Make sure you join us. But until next time, I'll see you at the matches.